Thank you very much. Welcome. At this time, we'd like to invite residents to make comments on agenda items only. That's a very good, yes. A motion to open the meeting, Mr. Hunter.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. At this moment, we'd like to invite residents to come to the microphone for agenda items only with a 2-minute limit. Do we have any residents in the community who would like to make comments on agenda items only? Thank you. Next is finance and the acceptance of the warrants. Can I have a motion to accept the warrants? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 4 is the approval of minutes from our regular meeting on September 13th, 2016. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is our superintendent's report. Dr. Creedon?
As has been my practice, I have to say that autumn in Mahopac is absolutely an amazing time of year. I have to keep reminding myself to keep my eyes on the road because, number one, the roads can be a little bit curved in so many of the areas. I don't want to end up in a lake. But when you look at the trees, it's amazing how bucolic this community is, and I can understand why the Hudson River Valley and the artists of this community have been so famous in American history. We actually have phenomenal schools, phenomenal administrators, and our children are doing extremely well. We're going to be reporting out in the next month on the new programs that we're developing, in addition to the new programs, also how the programs that we have had built within the district are being extremely efficient in meeting the needs of our young people. In addition to this, we'd like to also recognize one of our school board members who stepped down this past year, Mr. Mark Petrovsky, and we're going to see you at the podium.
Certificate of Appreciation from the Mahopac Central School District is awarded to Mr. Mark Pakowski in recognition of and appreciation for your contribution of 3 years of service on the Mahopac Central School District Board of Education. Proudly presented by Dr. Dennis Creedon, our Superintendent of Schools.
The second part of the superintendent's report is to have the architects from Tetra Tech who are doing the work for our school renovations give a presentation, and this is in direct relationship to the bond that'll be voted by the public next month. This is a phenomenal opportunity for our schools, not only in renovation, but in long-term looking at expanding the possibility of having our schools prepared in the future for actual solar energy. So, would you please like to give your presentation?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Garrett Hamlin from Tetra Tech Architects and Engineers. I'm here tonight, as Dr. Creedon said, to present on the capital projects that are being proposed for vote on November 15th. I have with me here tonight Aldo from ECG, and he'll present a portion of this project as well. The proposed capital project includes 2 components that we're going to talk about tonight. The first is the energy performance contract. It's a phase 2 project for this district. There was an energy performance contract done a number of years ago. Aldo's firm did that project, and he'll talk a little bit about that tonight. There is a companion capital project that's a roofing replacement project at 3 schools in the district. I'll talk about that in more detail in a little bit. The one thing that I want to note about both these two projects that make up the referendum being considered by the public is that they are no cost to the taxpayer. So that's a very important component. Each comes from a different position, and we'll explain that tonight, but I think it's very important to understand that taxes will not go up as a result of this capital project work due to the good planning of the district. The district will also tonight present a little bit about the financial aspects of the projects, and we'll talk about project timelines as well. At this point, I'd like to introduce Aldo from ECG. He's going to talk about the energy performance contract portion of this project.
Thanks, Garrett. My name is Aldo Mazzaferro. I'm an engineer with ECG, and I've been working with the district for close to about 2 years now to get to where we are in the development of this energy performance contracting opportunity. Before I get into it, I just want to give you an overview of the basics of an EPC. At its core, it's an opportunity for a government agency, school district, municipality, town, city, to partner with what's called an energy services company. A company like Ameresco, Honeywell, Siemens, Johnson Controls, big engineering firms that come in and audit your facilities, identify energy savings opportunities, guarantee those savings, and then leverage those savings to upgrade key facility needs throughout your facilities. Mayopac's had a long history of EPCs. My company was the owner's rep, engineer of record, basically consultant to assist the school district in the Phase 1 project, which was started, construction was about 2010, 2011. Because of the construction and the long timeline of the development of these projects, that project was actually developed based on 2008, 2009 technology. So fast forward to today, we're seeing a lot of our clients who did projects at that time period doing Phase 2 projects, and that's largely because of the advance of new technologies. First and foremost is in the lighting opportunity. Phase 1 project upgraded fluorescent technology. Now Phase 2 is going to upgrade to LED technology. Much more energy efficient, longer lamp life, it runs longer, it's much more of an economical approach to lighting your facilities. The other big piece of technology here, and I'll get into a little bit more, is solar. When we developed the Phase 1 project, the costs were 3, 4, 5 times higher to install solar at that time. In recent years, prices have dropped, rebate programs have become more attractive, and the panels themselves have increased in efficiency. So you yield more energy generation per panel installed, while at a lower cost as well. So right here lays out kind of what we've done to get to this point. This really started, I mentioned, 2 years ago with, I like to call it a feasibility study or a preliminary energy assessment, where we took the district's bills. Not every school district has this opportunity. You need to spend a certain amount of energy, you need to have a certain amount of buildings, certain technology in the facilities. So we did a preliminary study to make sure that this opportunity exists. Obviously it checked out, and we moved forward into what's called the request for proposals phase. This took place in the summer of 2015, just over a year ago, where these energy services companies, or ESCOs, came in and audited your facilities and identified energy savings opportunities. They proposed things like lighting, door replacements, window replacements, roof replacements in some cases, and solar throughout, because they all are very aware of the opportunity that your district has to capitalize on. Towards the end of that RFP process in about the winter of 2015-2016, the district received 4 proposals from competing energy services companies. My company worked with Tetra Tech to break these down, looking at the cost estimates, the savings estimates, making sure that they're based on reality in the district, specific site conditions, making sure that the calculations that they're using are appropriate based on real physics and engineering principles. And as a result of that, we found that Ameresco, the energy services company who actually won the job, was providing the most attractive proposal that was based in reality and wasn't as aggressive as the other ones and had the most thoughtful approach to developing a project for your district. So that brings us to just after the new year in February or so, where we presented to you the first time. myself and representatives from Amoresco to say, this is the preliminary proposal, this is what they've done, and this is what we're going to do in the next phases. So since February, over the last 9 months or so, Amoresco has been working in your buildings, auditing, refining all of their assumptions, looking at lighting counts, molding the scope. This is a very fluid development process in that the district is in full control of what scope goes in or out of the project. And Amoresco actually proposed a roof replacement originally, and the district had the foresight to say, no, let's do the roof project over here and put that money into other needs. So it's a very fluid process, but Amoresco had the most thoughtful, conservative approach, and that was one of the big reasons that they won this job. So fast forward to just a few months ago, Amoresco has developed what's called the Comprehensive Energy Audit, or CEA for short. There's a few different acronyms I'll throw around in here. That's the final project. The district has given their input, all the calculations are refined. My company is going to take that report, break it down, ensure that there's, again, doing a detailed technical financial evaluation to make sure that it's appropriate, that the state education department is going to approve it. All of these unique aspects of this type of work that are fairly specific expertise. So this is a high-level overview of the major scope upgrades that the district is going to enjoy through this project. As I mentioned before, LED technology is going to be done in every space throughout the district. Pneumatic controls, that's an upgrade of your building temperature controls. Pneumatic is an air-driven system that was installed in the 60s, the 70s, early 80s. Now a lot of our clients, a lot of districts are always converting and removing those pneumatic controls that tend to fail and you can't properly control the classroom temperatures. We're upgrading those to electronic temperature controls, which are much more accurate, have a much longer lifespan, much less maintenance. It's a huge upgrade for the facilities and operation of the facilities. Exterior doors. This is an energy upgrade. If you think about it, you're reducing the amount of cold air that infiltrates into the building. It's a very little amount of energy savings, but it's being funded by this project. These projects are a combination of quick paybacks, things like lighting, and then things that are long payback items, like a roof or a window that are extremely capital intensive to pay for. The district has to pay for it one way or the other because the equipment is failing. This is a way to upgrade those needs by leveraging the guaranteed savings that I mentioned before and investing them to pay for things like doors. And the doors are going to be upgraded comprehensively at Lakeview Elementary School, Fulmer Road, and partially at Mahopac Falls. And that's really a function of the high cost of the doors to install. And you want to keep this project self-funding with no impact to the taxpayers. And finally, the large-scale roof-mounted solar PV that's going to be installed at Lakeview Elementary School and the Austin Road Elementary School. Pictured down at the bottom right is a typical installation. These are non-penetrating systems, meaning there's no nails being driven down into the roofing systems. They're held down by bricks. So there is structural studies that you want to do, but it prolongs the life of the roof by not poking holes in a brand new roof after upgrading it. So it's a very thoughtful approach. This is a typical phase 2 project scope that we're seeing in a lot of projects, and it's a great opportunity for the district to capitalize on. This gives an overview of the year 1 project financials, and from year 1 on, it really only gets better. I always focus on year 1 because it's a good indicator of exactly what the financials look like of the project going forward. As I mentioned before, the guaranteed savings. This is a $4.2 million project of upgrades from the roofs, from the lighting, the doors, solar, pneumatic controls. Those upgrades are going to yield over $250,000 in annual savings that Amoresco is guaranteeing to the district. If those systems don't perform, they're on the hook to cut a check to the district to make up the difference. Through this project, you get SED aid, and Mahopac School District gets about 43%, somewhere in that ballpark. So half of the project is actually going to be paid for by the state. The combination of guaranteed savings and the annual aid reimbursement from the state pays off the annual debt service of about $330,000. With the additional PV maintenance that's going to be in there, the revenue from the project, the guaranteed savings and the aid reimbursements far exceeds the costs on an annual basis of this project. And that's what Garrett referenced before, in that there's no impact to the taxpayer, in that the savings fund fully the project. So you can see the total positive cash flow from year one is just over $20,000 on an annual basis. And over the 18-year term of the project, if you do this calculation out, the life of the equipment being installed all has an 18-year life to it. You're going to generate over $1 million in positive cash flow back to the district that can be used to fund additional upgrades elsewhere or other needs in the district. So just some of the next steps and what we're going to do going forward. There is a referendum vote about a month from tonight in November. In the meantime, Ameresco is going to develop the comprehensive energy audit report. It's already developed. They're going to give it to ECG, my company, to break down. Our engineers, our architects are going to be looking at the scope, challenging it, making sure it's in the best interest of the district. In parallel with that, the contract will be formalized, all the terms and conditions, how the savings are being guaranteed. These are extremely critical aspects of the development of the project that without the specific expertise and understanding of how these projects work, it could put your project at risk. After the project is actually finalized, the contract is signed after the referendum vote, we go into the engineering design of the project. That's where we prepare the plans and specifications to be submitted to the State Education Department. It'll be submitted to the State Education Department, which has about a 20-week lead time, in that there's a queue of projects being submitted to the state on a daily basis. There's about a 20-week wait. So you put it in, a reviewer picks it up 20 weeks from then, about 5 months. They provide questions, you get your permits after you address their concerns. The goal here, SED has a very gray area of the timeline. It could be 20 weeks, it could be 25, 15 weeks. We've had quicker ones. So the timeline we're shooting for construction in 2017. A lot of these upgrades, the lighting per se, can be done while school is in session, after second shift, starting at 3:30, 4 o'clock when the buildings are empty. Things like the pneumatic system replacement, that needs to be done over the summer. Exterior doors need to be done over the summer. You can't be removing those doors in the winter. And solar can generally be done in any time except when it's really snowing and really blowing out there. So the construction will be about a year to a year and a half. It's generally a quick process, but they do stick around to make sure that everything's functioning properly for the district, because again, they are guaranteeing these savings. So they're not just going to install this pneumatic. They're not going to just replace your building temperature controls and walk away. They need to stick around to make sure that it's functioning properly, make sure that all the classrooms are being set back properly per the design. Otherwise, the savings won't come out and they'll be responsible to cut a check to you. So they are invested in doing a good job for the construction, and through construction, my company actually provides services inspecting the work, generally on a bi-weekly basis, to make sure that it's all being done in consideration of exactly what was laid out in the contract. So that's the overview of the EPC project that we're doing for you. I'd be happy to answer any questions now or after the presentation, or I'll pass it back to Garrett Hamlin to get back into what the roof project is and the capital upgrade. Thank you.
Thank you, Aldo. The one thing I want to emphasize about the energy performance contracts is what Aldo referenced, that these are guaranteed savings. So the energy services company is required to verify, and Tetra Tech and ECG will also do a verification of energy savings. If the savings that are projected at the outset of the project are not met, then Ameresco is required to actually make up the difference between the actual savings and the projected savings. So this is really a no-risk proposition to districts who pursue energy performance contracts. It's a really good way to accomplish this kind of capital improvement work. Are there any questions from the board on energy performance contracts before I move to roofing? Okay. So Tetra Tech was hired in 2015. We're your architect of record. We're really glad to be working here in the district. We performed the building condition survey, which is mandated by SED, and finished that this year. That resulted in a very comprehensive long-range planning document that you've all seen. It's a good inch thick, and it details all the work that really is going to need to be done in the district over the coming years and decades. One of the things that stood out to my team, our team, as we did that process is the roofs in the district really are in need of repair. They're in serious need of repair. They are the top priority that came out of the building condition survey, and that's why we recommended that this first capital project that we're involved in does a good chunk of addressing the highest priority roof needs. When we started the energy performance project and started talking about solar, it was very apparent that Amoresco had a proposal for solar that was very cost effective and made a lot of sense to pursue. But what we decided as a team with the district's involvement is that the most cost effective approach was to have Amoresco focus on the solar aspects and then have the district do the roofing aspects ahead of the installation of solar. You don't want to put new solar panels on old roofs that need to be replaced. So if we look at the presentation for a second here, the district's been talking about roofs for some time now, so this is not a new topic by any means. The district commissioned a study performed of the roofs in 2014. It's the Watsky report. They did a very thorough analysis of the roofs and came up with proposals for a long-term replacement plan. So when Tetra Tech was hired in 2015, we also have extensive roofing expertise. We've worked in schools for over 50 years and specialize in roofs. We brought our own roofing expert in. He reviewed the report, confirmed its findings. He walked every aspect of your roofs and really came to the same conclusion. The other things that occurred in the meantime were the district they did some additional testing. You guys did thermal scans of the roofs to show which areas of the roofs are wet. And this report was done last year. This is an image of thermal scanning of the roofs. This is actually the Lakeview roof that's been the chronic offender. It's just, it's in serious need of replacement. The district's been doing a good job of holding back the water and managing this, but it's really time now to address this in a capital improvement way. So out of our work, we've identified 3 buildings in the district that the roofs are the highest priority. That's Austin Road Elementary School, a portion of Mahopac High School, and obviously Lakeview Elementary School. I think everybody knows that Lakeview's really got a roof that needs replacement. I'm going to show you some images of each of those so you get a sense for what roofs we're talking about replacing. This is Lakeview, and these areas in the maroon are the areas that will be replaced by this project. One thing to point out is the area right here of roof is a brand new roof, so that will remain untouched. This will really address the major roof problems that are going on in Lakeview. This is an image of the thermal scans that were done of Lakeview, and I'll show you some other thermal scans along the way here tonight, but this really identifies that these roofs are they're holding moisture, the insulation is presumed to be saturated, and so this project will, if approved by the voters, facilitate a full tear off of the roofs and a replacement with a new state-of-the-art roofing system. 25 to 30-year warranty, rubber roof, EPDM roof. The other thing I want to mention is that in addition to doing thermal scans, the district also has done some preliminary hazardous material assessments, testing work on these roofs. That helped us to budget accordingly. We don't want any surprises during construction. And so we're confident that the budgets that are being placed in front of the voters are appropriate and accurate to be able to achieve the scope that's being presented. If we move to Austin Road, this is an aerial photograph. These are the areas of the roof that are proposed for replacement. The other areas of the roof are doing well now, and they're just really not candidates for replacement at this point. This is the thermal scan of the same school. Again, showing the areas of wet insulation. And then at the high school, The roofing project would replace roofs on these roofs here, and also remove some skylights to both minimize the penetrations so that the water infiltration down the road would be really mitigated, roof penetrations and skylights, although as an architect we love to have natural light in buildings. The downside is that they tend to be the first thing that leak. The project would put solar panels on top of this roof as well. The project budget that's being proposed to the voters is a total of $3.7 million. It's broken down by all the areas of the roof that I just went over. We also include contingencies both for construction and during design. Cost escalation, we're carrying a 5% cost escalation for work that's going to happen in the future, either 2017 or 2018. And then there's an incidental expense budget line item for things like professional fees, testing, construction management, those things, bonding, attorneys, etc. So the total project for the roof is $3.719,375. So Mr. Clams is going to speak a little bit about the financial aspects of the project, and then I'll come back after that slide and I'll give you a sense for the timeline and overview. The one thing that I'd like to say is that Tetra Tech has been doing school projects, as I mentioned earlier, for 50 years. I've been with the firm for 15 as a principal lead architect. And when districts do this kind of forethought and planning, it makes really the most sense, so that this isn't a project that stemmed out of just a need, but it was a project that is marrying both the need and the financial planning in ways that make really great sense for the district. So with that, I'd ask Mr. Klanzer to share some of the financial components here.
I guess I'm the short one. Good evening, I'm Ron Klamser. I am the district's Assistant Superintendent for Business and Human Resources. Happy to be with you this evening to talk about this very exciting, I think, very exciting project. It's the culmination, really, of lots of work with lots of workers and lots of forethought and lots of financial planning over the last few years. First, I'd like to thank both Garrett and Aldo for their work involved in the project, but mainly I would like to thank the leadership of the superintendent, the Board of Education, with specific thanks to the Buildings and Grounds Committee and their leadership. They've been working on this for the better part of 2 years, working with the architects, working with the engineering firm to really lay out a plan that makes sense, that's affordable, and in all actuality won't cost us money, but will save us money in the future. We're going to talk a little bit about that, although both Garrett and Aldo have done an excellent job of laying out that plan and that process. I also want to thank George Prine, our Director of Facilities, who's been extremely involved in the process, and our Business Administrator, Chris Fontania. It really does take a lot of brains, a lot of hands, a lot of thinking to make a project of this scope and size be successful. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to be fiscally prudent. We wanted to do something that was efficient and effective. We wanted to do the project right, and we wanted to do it at minimal cost to the taxpayer, if any cost to the taxpayer. And we're going to be able to do that with this project. I know the recent legal ad that came out, that is our legal requirement to provide notice about our public vote, can be a little bit daunting or scary, if you will. Basically, that legal ad reads that the voters are giving permission, if the proposition passes, to collect and raise the taxes for the full amount of the project. Basically, we need voter approval to approve the full project. Language included, allows us to raise taxes to pay for the full project. We can certainly guarantee to you that we're not going to raise taxes for that amount. What we've laid out here is a plan that's a little complex, but I think it's pretty understandable too. We get about 42% state aid from New York State Education Department. That state aid covers 42% of the project. So we're really looking at two different projects. I'll use rough figures, $4.7 million for an energy performance contract. Already, Aldo was showing you how that project in itself, with the savings of the energy upgrades, is actually going to bring back to the district a positive cash flow. So that project, when you factor in state aid, when you factor in the energy savings, is actually going to reduce budget costs. So immediately, $4.7 million of this proposition is actually going to be a budget reduction for us. The latter part of that is the $3.7 million in the roof project. Again, we receive state aid for that portion. So 42% of that project is going to be covered by the State Education Department from our state aid fund. The local portion of that is the 1.37 that you'll see up there on the left side of the screen. Strategically, we worked on a multi-year financial plan that allowed us the ability to establish a capital reserve account. You may recall back in May when the voters approved the budget, the voters also approved by a very large majority of the district to be able to establish a capital reserve account, not to exceed 5 years that the capital reserve account lasts for, and not to exceed a total amount of $2.5 million, which is being funded by unexpended budgetary appropriations and/or unexpended reserves. Many of you can remember this past winter, if we can call it a winter, wasn't really a winter. We didn't have much snow. We saved a lot of money on energy for heating the building, on snow plowing. At the end of the year, we were able to squirrel that money away, and because the voters approved that reserve fund, we were able to transfer it into a capital reserve account. We put the $1.37 million into the capital reserve account. So worst case scenario, we don't need the $2.5 million. We have the 1.37 with these calculations. We can cover the local portion of that, of this project, thereby being no cost, no tax increase to the voters. In the future years, we will, when possible, be able to put additional money aside if we have it, not to exceed the total $2.5 million. But what we can say to you emphatically tonight is that with these numbers here, what our fiscal advisors are telling us will be our local share, we have that in our capital reserve account to cover this. So although the legal ad seemed daunting and scary, at the end of the day, there will be no tax increase estimated for this project. With the exception of, if you look at this slide, which lots of numbers on the slide, and I understand, the first year, there is the slight increase of $45,000 debt service. We will not be raising taxes to cover that $45,000. We also have a debt service reserve that we have money to pay debt service with, and we can squeak the $45,000 in our budget with the additional savings. If you recall back to the energy performance contract, there's a $25,000 cash flow in the first year, so that automatically reduces that in half, and the other 20 savings will come from other ancillary savings that aren't calculated in the energy savings, like less maintenance costs for upgrades and so on and so forth. So with that being said, I'll also be here afterwards, be happy to answer any questions specific to this project and the finances, and then in the next couple of weeks be taking this project to a variety of community groups to talk about what we have going on, and looking forward to that vote on November 15th. Does the board have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Flamser.
Mr. President, I just want to say a couple of words. Just to this team, I remember the conversation Ron and I had a little over 2 years ago when we were concerned about the buildings in this district. We knew that we had roofs leaking, and we knew that over time we had neglected them. We're in a situation where a vast majority of our roofs need to be replaced. And Ron talked about redoing the energy audit, and people had told us initially that that wasn't a wise decision because you're not going to get the same type of financial recovery that we got with the first energy audit. With Garrett, Aldo, Ron, George, Roger, and I have spent a lot of hours looking at this. This is taking a bad situation and actually turning it into a positive for our district. We are now in a position where we're going to be able to replace roofs, and we'll be able to put solar energy on those roofs, which will actually recover funds for us. So I just commend this team for an outstanding job. I've been working with them for a little over 2 years, and double, triple, quadruple checking everything to make sure that we're in the right position. So thank you, guys.
So just two quick slides here. In terms of the timing, the referendum vote being November 15th, we'll also enter into design phase for the roofs right away. We want to be on the roofs before the snow flies to make sure that we can get all the field work done. We'll submit to SED in January of 17. SED's review time, as Aldo said, is somewhat of a variable here, but we're anticipating being out of SED in time to bid for spring and construction of 2017. It may also move into 2018 depending on the bidding time frame. And that's it. Energy performance project, roofing project, and then the referendum vote on November 15th. Any questions? Any last questions for us? Thank you,
We're all
everyone.
set. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Dr. Creedon, anything else for the superintendent's report?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to letter B, which is the Board of Education committee reports. We heard a lot about buildings and grounds. Mr. Bell, is there anything else for buildings and grounds?
Thank you very much. Yes, Buildings and Grounds did not meet this since the past meeting. Our next meeting is actually this coming Monday, the 24th at 7:30 in the district office. As always, it's open to the public. All are welcome. I would like to thank everybody that's been involved in this, from Dennis and Mike and Ron spearheading it initially. You know, the work that Garrett, Aldo, George has done. It's been a tremendous team effort, and I think they did a good job explaining it, that, you know, a lot of thought went into this. We're getting work done that's necessary, that has to be done, but it really is being put in place in a way that has no impact on the taxpayers financially. So thank you very much, and tremendous job, gentlemen. All right. If you'll indulge me for one more, this is coming from my daughter. The Mahopac High School Drama Company is presenting the dramatic comedy You Can't Take It With You this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. Admission is $10. The children are actually rehearsing as we speak today, so if you get a chance to come out and support the drama company, please do. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Kazari, our transportation committee update, please.
Yeah, we have not had a meeting, and if a issue arises that we need one, we will have a meeting.
Thank you. Mrs. Masafra, do you have an update on the Committee for Special Education, Technology, and Curriculum?
Good evening, everyone. We did not meet this month. We will be meeting in the month of October.
Thank you. Mr. Scalfani, is there an update on the Audit Committee?
Sure. The Audit Committee received the audit report from the Bonadio Group for the fiscal year of 2015-16 ending June 30th. We will be voting tonight to accept the findings and the audit recommendations for the year ending June 30th, 2016.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. This is a lengthy agenda this evening. I'd like to ask if board members have any questions or concerns or any things they'd like to pull out at this moment.
On K, Special Development, Professional Development Committee, I don't remember speaking about that at committee. Was that discussed last night?
The Professional Development Committee is actually a requirement of state code, where in the past I have expressed that this was an obligation that we had not been able to come forward with, but with the leadership of Dr. Pease, he has pulled together educators who are working on the committee to ensure that our curriculum and our professional development plan are in alignment with state code.
And we have 2 non-employees on there. You have the PTO
Yes.
president, so how do they fit in, and someone from Westchester Community College?
Right, the actual code requires a parent and a university or college professor as part of the committee. So the committee represents educators, but also has to have 1 parent and 1 professional from a university or college.
And how were the individuals, the parents and the professor picked?
They were picked by Dr. Pease.
What was the criteria?
I'm actually sure
I
that,
just have some questions on other, and some of it may get into HR, so I'm wondering if we could pull this and then discuss it.
Sure, I recommend that we pull letter K out of the consent agenda and that we can discuss it among the board.
Okay.
Are there any other letters or issues with the consent agenda that board members like to discuss or pull out?
Brian, I'd just like to point out that we have a retiree, Mrs. Roseanne Scolpini, who has been a bus driver in our district for many years, and she'll be retiring as of October 25th. We want to thank her for her service, and we're very happy that she has been with us for so long.
Well said. Thank you, Mrs. Scalfani. Well said. Any other comments or questions about the consent agenda? Before we move to approving this, I'd like to draw your attention to letter H, which actually has a clerical error on it. And letter H in the consent agenda should read recertification of lead evaluators for teachers and paraprofessionals. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda
Minus K?
minus K?
so moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Congratulations to those members who were appointed on the consent agenda, including part-time bus drivers who were moved to full-time bus drivers that are here this evening, and including Michelle Troiano, who's here. So congratulations. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, your last name again, please? No, the last name of her. Tina Justino. Congratulations and thank you. Thank you. I'd like to move now to the addendum and ask for approval of the addendum. Can I have a motion to approve the addendum?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any abstentions or no votes? Good. Okay, excellent. Okay, now we're at the section of the meeting tonight where we're going to close the meeting, and in doing so, we'll ask for resident comments. I think we want to do that with the board. Yes. So now we're going to ask if there's any resident comments, come up and discuss anything for a 2-minute opportunity.
None?
Excellent. Motion to close the Board of Education meeting.
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Once again, congratulations to all those this evening, and the meeting is now closed.